I have the rocks all set up and they're in a pile and they're all close. So there's no spaces between the rocks, right? They're all close. So if you have them all spaced out like this, it's actually harder. Like your foot has to be more mobile because there's more spaces. So I'm going to start with them all together. She's very curious about what this is all about. And then I'm going to take one foot and just place them on the rocks. So without putting my weight on it yet, I just kind of let my foot feel the surface. And then I'm going to slowly shift my weight onto that foot. And we're not using the rocks to force your foot to mobilize. That's the thing that I want to get across, is that we're using the rocks to test to see if your foot is mobile. So if your foot is mobile, it should kind of fall into all the little nooks and crannies around the rocks. And then just lean back, take your weight off that foot and place it in another position. So right away I can feel, the first thing of course is always the skin and the nerves. So the nerves on the bottom of your feet are already reading that. And they're sending that more intricate map up to your brain. It's like, whoa, what's going on here? So this is an excellent way to wake yourself up in the morning, right? If you have a rock box, just put it in your bathroom and stand there to brush your teeth, because the surfaces that our feet always meet in the house are always hard, flat, and level. Unless you have carpets, and then they're soft, flat, and level. So just keep doing that with the same foot. Just take another position, start to shift your knee can bend or not. You can try it both ways. So if I bend my knee, I'm dissipating some of that pressure, but I'm also pronating more, so the foot flattens more. If I keep the knee straight and shift, then the weight goes more into the heel and then up through the leg into the hip. I'm going to try that one more spot on the same foot, with the knee bent, the knee straight, and just try that, see if you notice any difference. If you're finding that it's not an issue, like your foot is fine, then you can start shifting more weight onto it, and maybe even taking this foot off the ground as if you were taking a step on a rocky surface, where for that moment all your weight would be on one foot. Okay, so even though this seems kind of like playful and not very difficult to some people, for people who've never walked, like, you know, most people exercise, they go from their house to their car to their gym, so they may not ever walk on a surface that is not flat and level for a long time. And I've switched the other foot. And then what happens is they walk on a surface that isn't level, like a broken sidewalk, or you know, somebody invites them to go hiking and the trail is not as perfect as they're accustomed. And the next thing they know, their stiff feet creates an environment where their ankle, knee, and hip has to do the mobility. So that's when you're fine, like, oh, I need my poles, right? Or I need my walking stick. It's like just the lack of mobility in the foot can set you up for a lack of balance or excessive use of the ankle, knee, and hip instead. So I've done both feet, shifted the weight, tested it out. You might be at the stage where you're just like putting your foot on it, not weighting it. You might be at the stage where you're putting your foot and shifting a little bit of weight, right? So just don't force it, because again, we're not using the rocks to force mobility. We're using the rocks to test mobility. So now if you're finding that's okay, you can start moving them apart. So now I kind of wish I could like lift up this mat and show you, but maybe I'll take some pictures and just post them later. But now what I'm doing is creating more gaps. So now my foot has to be more mobile, because it has to fit. Not only does it have to fit within the gaps, but it also has more of one rock under one spot of the foot. So of course, the most mobility would be like you're walking along a flat and level surface and you step on one rock and you're like, ow, right? Which is, that happens. You're like, ah, and it's suddenly like your foot encounters that surface, and it's so different than flat and level that you're immediately alarmed, right? And that the weight goes shifting off of it. And then, you know, if it happens too quickly, you might end up stumbling. And so try it with a few gaps. and then continually move the rocks apart until you've only got, see right there, I only have a rock under my 5th metatarsal, which is the base of my baby toe, and then under the almost the inside edge of the heel. So when I press there, my foot has to mobilize in a very specific way. So we can do mobility. Sorry for the upper body posture, it's the cat. There we go. Getting older and older. I forget what I was saying now. I think I got distracted. I think what I was saying is we can test for mobility, but we can test for mobility in certain ways, like using a ball or using our hands. But this way kind of gets so much more coverage in terms of how your feet can mobilize in a very short period of time. So again, it's such a useful way to mobilize your feet and wake up if you're doing it barefoot, especially waking up all the nerves in the skin of the foot. Oh, that feels good right there. All right, so we've done both feet. We've created some spaces. Now you can do both feet at the same time, but you're only going to go to that level if you're finding, the previous, ouch. See, oh, there's a really sensitive spot. If you're finding the previous level was okay, and you can see like my arm going out, that already my balance is compromised because my feet are having to move in ways that one foot has to move in one way and one foot has to move in various different ways, that my upper body has to suddenly accommodate that movement, right? Remember, your ankle and your knee are mostly hinge joints. So it's the joint that we explored last time. It was that joint that we're asking to mobilize under the rest of our ankle and knees, but also all the other little bones and joints of our feet, which we're going to look at later today.